Hi students, a very good evening. I hope you have listened to my previous lecture on this topic, what is an author. Let us continue from where we have stopped yesterday on the previous lecture actually. So let me share the screen first. Yeah, I hope the screen is visible to you. And yesterday's class we have seen how Foucault presented that defining the concepts like the work and the author are very difficult, and it is not just enough to declare that the author is has disappeared or the death of the author, etc. So Foucault says that what takes place in the emptiness that gets that appears because of the disappearance of the author, so that we have to focus on. So to simply state that disappearance, the author has disappeared or the death of the author is not enough. So the critics or of course the discourse should answer, okay, any theory should answer what are the gaps and breaches that are coming out because of the disappearance, and how we have to uh, relate them. Okay, so first he says that in order to answer these, he says that we need to clarify briefly the problems arising from the use of the author's name. So first, to uh, know what gaps we will encounter if we declare the death of the author. Before going into that, Foucault says that we have to understand the problems that arise from the use of the author's name. So, what is an author's name? How does it function? So, Foucault, of course, has posed two questions, that is, what is an author's name and how does it function? Far from offering a solution, I shall only indicate some of the difficulties that it presents. So Foucault says that, of course, my discussion or the following paragraphs, Foucault may not be answering us directly the question of what, answering the questions he posed, but he will be, of course, pointing out the difficulties that the author's name presents, and what are the functions of the author's name. So the author's name is a proper name, and therefore it raises the problems common to all proper names. So firstly, of course, there is no doubt the author's name is a proper name, and what the proper name, any proper name will present the problems. Those problems will be presented by the author's name also. Obviously, when one cannot turn a proper name into a pure and simple reference. But one thing is quite clear, that we cannot turn the proper name into a very pure and simple reference. It has other than indicative functions. So a proper name is not only having a referential function. It may have a reference or indicative function. Actually, we have seen the functions of language of Jacobson. Here, actually, Foucault is referring to Searle's analysis. He is also one of the linguists who brought out, philosopher and linguist who brought out the functions of language, and their he is taking, Foucault is taking that, of course, a proper name will be having a referential function or indicative functions, but it is not simply those functions. It will have other functions also. More than an indication, a gesture, a finger pointed at someone, it is the equivalent of a description. So, proper name is not simply performing referential or indicative functions, but it have a kind of descriptive function also. So, following, we find the examples given by Foucault. So, he gives the example when we hear the word or the proper name Aristotle. Of course, the name itself brings us into different attachments. So, it is not simply referring or indicating the person who is named as Aristotle, but of course, because we are familiar with Aristotle, we will be attaching some kind of description or a designation, etc. So one employs a word that is equivalent of one or a series of definite descriptions. So for us, Aristotle is known as the author of Poetics, or we have politics or analytics and rhetoric, so many. So Nicomachean Ethics, etc., which we have actually referred to in our discourses on Aristotle's Poetics. So if you come to hear the word Aristotle, of course, it is not simply like any other proper name having the functions of a reference or an indication, but it of course brings us much more. So a kind of definite description is there for Aristotle. So, however, because a proper name does not have just one signification, one cannot stop there. So, proper name can have more significations. And that is why a proper name, whether it is an author's name or not, will be having more significations also. So when we discover that Rimbaud did not write La Chasse Spirituelle, we cannot pretend that the meaning of this proper name or that of the author has been altered. If in an established work or a popular work, whom we think that this man has written, a particular person has written, and after some time, if it is stated that that person did not write, of course, it takes much controversy, or we cannot simply accept the statement. Say for example, here Rimbaud and La Chasse Spirituelle, you may not be aware, but let us take the example of Shakespeare. If I say, if someone says that Shakespeare did not write Tempest or Hamlet, etc., we cannot simply, on hearing that statements, pretend that the meanings of this proper name or that of the author has been altered. So because though it is a proper name, author's name of course will carry some weight, some discourse. So the proper name and the author's name are situated between the two poles of description and designation. So author's name of course comes with a kind of description, and other proper name, and the author's name of course has a designation. So though it is a proper name, Foucault says that author's name is situated at the pole of designation, whereas all other proper names, whose the persons who are indicated by those proper names are not writers, will have only a descriptive function. They must have a certain link with what they name, but on that one that is neither entirely in the mode of designation nor in that of description. It must be a specific link. So author name and the proper name, of course, they are situated between two poles, and they should have a certain link with what they name, but one that is neither entirely in the mode of designation nor in that of description. It should be a specific link, however, and it is here that the particular difficulties of the author's name arise. So now this paragraph Foucault presents as though it is a proper name. Though author's name is a proper name, what are the difficulties or complexities surrounding the author's name. And we have to think in general also. If not reading this paragraph of Foucault, we can of course think that if a person is not an author, and if you give some statements regarding that person with a with a proper name, like any name that we can take which is familiar to us, of course we accept the changes. Take the name of Rama or X in our culture. Rama not with reference to say what the protagonist of Ramayana, etc. But because in our culture that is a common name. Okay, the proper name, which of course will be given to many. So if we have some person who is named like Rama, and after sometimes we may say that this man does not belong to so and so place, or he is not of these many years, or he is not having brown eyes, or etc. If you keep giving or changing the statements, even if you give such statements, they that person's designation will not get altered, and there will not be any contradiction also, and there may not be any arguments regarding that. That is in case of the proper names of common people who are not authors. But with the name of the author, Foucault says that that cannot happen. So that is why if someone states that Shakespeare did not write Hamlet or Tempest, it will become a great subject of discourse. Okay, agreements, disagreements, discussion, and of course it becomes a polemical issue also. So an author's name at the same time is a proper name, and not having the functions which are attached with the proper name, means it will have those functions, and in additional it may have some other functions also. So that is how, of course, here Foucault explains that author's name is no doubt a proper name, but it of course will have some weightage in a discourse that is developed around that name in a given culture. So the problems raised by author's name are much more complex. So Foucault says that there are problems with the author's name. So here he gives the example of Shakespeare only, which I have already discussed. So we need not discuss that once again. So many other facts point out the paradoxical singularity of the author's name. So author's name is not like the proper name. So the author's name is not therefore just a proper name like the rest. The contradictions are there. One is the author's name is a proper name. The other is it is not a proper name, because like any other name, author's name is also a proper name, but it has more functions, it is more complex. Okay, so many other facts point out the paradoxical singularity of the author's name. So author's name, of course, is very singular. To say that so and so is not exist is not at all the same as saying that Homer or Hermes Trismegistus did not exist. So in Homer, of course, is a Greek writer. If you can't, we can of course replace the names also. If to say that some Tom, Dick, and Harry does not exist, or to say that Shakespeare did not exist, it makes a great difference. So the first one, of course, we are not bothered. But with the second one, of course, it becomes a great difference. So thus Foucault says that these differences may result from the fact that an author's name is not simply an element in a discourse. So it is not simply like any other element in our discourse. An element in a discourse capable of being either subject or object, of being replaced by a pronoun and the like. So unlike the common proper names, author's name is not like that. It performs a certain role with regard to narrative discourse. These lines are very important. This paragraph is important. You can underline. Foucault says that what is the uniqueness of author's name, or what is the what you call importance of author's name or significance of author's name. He says author's name is not simply an element in a discourse which can either be a subject or object or being replaced by a pronoun and the like, and then it performs a certain role with regard to narrative discourse. So author's name has a certain role in the narrative discourse of given culture, assuring a classificatory function. Of course, so and so is a sonneteer, so and so is an epic poet, or so and so is a tragedian or a novelist. We have so many classificatory functions that are attached to authors' names. Such a name permits one to group together a certain number of texts. So, an author's name is not like any other proper name because it facilitates us or it permits us to put together a certain number of texts. Say, for example, you might have already read Shakespeare, and how many plays? 34. Or if it comes to sonnets, it is 154 sonnets, like that. So, a certain number of texts are attached to a particular author name and define them. So, we can define so and so is the text based upon the writing style of the author, a particular style that the any writer will practice or follow, differentiate them from and contrast them to others. So taking a particular text, if you are very familiar with the text of one particular author, or if you are reading every text written by a particular author, after some time you will reach a point where you can recognize that these are the lines of so and so. Mostly we can guess if you are very familiar with the writing style of a particular writer or author. We will reach a point where, without knowing the author, we can guess who could be the author of these lines. So, and we can, of course, compare and contrast these works of a particular author with others also. So, these are the functions of an author's name. So, an author's name cannot be simply considered as a proper name. Besides this, Foucault says, in addition, it establishes a relationship among the texts. So, among the texts, of course, a relation will be there. And if it is belonging to one particular author. Here Foucault is giving Hermes Trismegistus did not exist, nor did Hippocrates, in the sense that Balzac existed. But the fact that several texts have been placed under the same name indicates that there has been established among them a relationship of homogeneity, filiation, authentication of some texts by the use of others, reciprocal explication, or concomitant utilization. So these are the things which we can, of course, recognize in the works of a particular person who is, for us, an author. The author's name serves to categorize a certain mode of being of discourse, a particular way of discourse. The fact that the discourse has an author's name, that one can say this was written by so and so, or so and so its author, shows that this discourse is not ordinary everyday speech that merely comes and goes, not something that is immediately consumable. But on the contrary, Foucault says that it is a speech that must be received in a certain mode, and that in a given culture must receive a certain status. So, author's name, of course, will develop, uh, a certain kind of discourse surrounding it in any culture. See, when we are reading Bakhtin, I think, okay, to just to say simply, listen to me, Shakespeare will say, lend me your ears. So if you find such phrases, it is, because we read some of the texts of Shakespeare as part of our syllabus, or out of interest we may read some more also, then you will understand that this is the phrase of Shakespeare, or this is the phrase of Milton, or other great classical writers that we have already read. Or if you come across nature poems like, say, Wordsworth's or Keats or Shelley's, etc., you will be able to say that these are the words of so and so poet or so and so author. So this is the significance or uniqueness of an author's name. So an author's name cannot be considered simply as any other proper name, because some discourse develops around that in a given culture. And of course, the author's name will be received with a certain kind of status in a given culture or in a literary tradition. So it would seem that the author's name, unlike other proper names, does not pass from the interior of a discourse to the real and exterior individual who produced it. Instead, the name seems always to be present, marking off the edges of the text, revealing or at least characterizing its mode of being. So now the author's name, unlike the other proper names, does not pass from the interior of a discourse to the real and exterior individual who produced it. The author's name is always within, that is there from the edge of the text, and revealing or characterizing its mode of being. The author's name manifests the appearance of a certain discursive set and indicates the status of this discourse within a society and a culture. It has no legal status, nor is it located in the fiction of the work. Rather, it is located in the break that founds a certain discursive construct and its very particular mode of being. So, not that the author himself will establish that discourse, but the discourse gets developed in a given culture or in a given society. It may not have any legal status, but of course it will be there. Okay. As a result, we could say that in a civilization like our own, there are a certain number of discourses that are endowed with the author function. So, defining how the author's name is different from the proper name, and a particular discourse gets developed around the author name in any culture. Of course, Foucault says that if you observe the discourses that are woven around the names of different authors, Foucault says that we will understand that in cultures like ours, the author's name is endowed with some functions, while others are deprived of it. All others here means the proper names may not have that kind of function. A private letter may well have a singer, it doesn't have an author. A contract may well have a guarantor, it does not have an author. An anonymous text posted on a wall probably as a writer, but not an author. The author function is therefore characteristic of the mode of existence, circulation, and functioning of certain discourses within a society. So the author's name enables to develop certain kind of functions but through its existence, circulation, and in a given society. So here, of course, Foucault says that I have limited my subject. So because author and text, certainly the author function in painting, music, and other arts should have been discussed. See, when we say author, it is not simply in literature, but Foucault has limited the discourse only to the text and the author. That is why he says here that I have limited my subject, but certainly we can talk of the author of a painting or music, etc., and other arts also. Uh, he says arts should have been discussed, but even supposing that we remain within the world of discourse, as I want to do, I seem to have given the term author with much too narrow a meaning. So now, because he is trying to present the world of discourse, that is of letters, okay, and text, he has limited his scope of the word author as such. So I have discussed the author only in the limited sense of a person to whom the production of a text, a book, or a work can be legitimately attributed. So he is saying that, because people, others may question, how can you limit the author only to the text? That is why he is justifying himself here in this essay. And Foucault says that I have limited my discussion purposefully to the world of discourse only. And that is why I have limited the word author in the meaning of a text, author of a text, a book, or a work which can be legitimately attributed to that person. So it is easy to see that in the sphere of discourse, one can be the author of much more than a book. So he is explaining that we should not think that author is only limited to the book. That is why he says in the sphere of discourse. See, discourse which we use in a very general meaning nowadays is not only a general word previously. It's a very technical or sometimes a linguistical and philosophical word also. A discourse is the, ideas surrounded around a particular concept in a given society. Okay, so a discourse we should not take in a very general sense. I will be giving you a short, discussion of discourse, what is discourse, and when this word actually is, used, and under what purposes we are using. So let us not consider discourse as a very general word. So a discourse, of course, refers to the kind of knowledge on a particular concept that is present in a particular culture or a tradition or any society. So he says it is not that author is only for a book, but we can find an author of a theory, a tradition, or a discipline in which other books and authors will in their turn find a place. So these others are in a position which we shall call transdiscursive. This is a recurring phenomenon, certainly as old as our civilization. Homer, Aristotle, and the church fathers, as well as the first mathematicians and the originators of the Hippocratic tradition, all played this role. So he says that there can be an author of a theory or a tradition or a discipline, and there are authors who we have to term them or call them as transdiscursive. For example, Aristotle. So why Foucault is stating like that, you can to certain extent guess why Aristotle is a transdiscursive personality, because Aristotle's on the books or on the theories that were developed by Aristotle, we can see that many people have worked from time to time, and we have seen with reference to poetics especially, how it was translated by many, how it was interpreted by many, and based upon the theories of Aristotle only, other theories have come up. So in that particular aspect, you can consider Aristotle as a transdiscursive, and of course, other examples also Foucault has given here. And furthermore, in the course of the 19th century, there appeared in Europe another more uncommon kind of author. So Foucault says that if you go to the 19th century of Europe, there is one more appearance, which is an uncommon kind of author, whom one should confuse with neither the great literary authors, nor the authors of religious texts, nor the founders of science. But who are they? In a somewhat arbitrary way, we shall call those who belong in this last group founders of discursivity. They are unique in that they are not just the authors of their own works, and these two are actually Marx and Sigmund Freud. Okay, he says, their works, of course, will not come under any religion text or a literary text or science also. But they were more discursive, because Freud's theories have become a source for the development of psychological sciences. Many sciences have taken roots from Freud's theories of interpretation of dreams, etc. And if you go to Karl Marx is the author of the Communist Manifesto, or which is called as Das Kapital. And after Marx, of course, many political theories or sociological theories, etc., were based upon the Marx theory only. So 19th century, of course, Foucault says that there is another kind of author who is not the author of a literary book, or not even a religious text, or not the founders of science. And so he says that we can call this as founders of discursivity. And they are actually these two people. So, of course, in the history of the epistemology or the knowledge, we can see some figures who are very influential. And of course, Derrida also says in his essay, not Derrida, Bakhtin says in the discourse in the novel, of course, presents Foucault and Marx as two important figures, okay, in the history of the discourse, and how they were able to bring out so many other discourses based upon their own books or theories. So, obviously, it is easy to object. One might say that it is not true that the author of a novel is only the author of his own text. In essence, he also provided that he acquires some importance, governs and commands more than that. So, of course, Foucault's ideas, or in the previous paragraph, that is privileging the 19th century non-literary authors of Freud and Marx, can be objected by someone who is very literary. So, he is justifying again. He says that someone may say that the author of a novel is also producing some discursivity. So for that, he says he governs, commands more than that. Someone may say like that. To take a very simple example, one could say that Anne Radcliffe not only wrote The Castles of Ethelyn and several other novels, but also made possible the appearance of the Gothic horror novel at the beginning of the 19th century. In that respect, her author function exceeds her own work. But Foucault will not agree to that. But I think there is an answer to this objection. These founders of discursivity, that is Marx and Freud as examples, I use because Foucault says that I believe them to be both the first and most important cases make possible something altogether different from what a novelist makes possible. So he won't agree that literary authors like novelists or dramatists or poets can be discursive. And he says that taking the example of Anne Radcliffe, texts opened the way for a certain number of resemblances and analogies which have their model or principle in her work. The later contains characteristic signs, figures, relationships, and structures which could be reused by others. So, according to Foucault, the books of Freud and Marx are having some characteristic signs, figures, and structures which can be reused by others. In other words, he says Radcliffe founded the Gothic horror novel means that in the 19th century, Gothic novel one will find, as in Anne Radcliffe works, the theme of the heroine caught in the trap of her own innocence, the hidden castle, the character of the black cursed hero, devoted to making the world expiate the evil done to him and all the rest of it. So he, of course, will not accept that there is something novel in the development of the tradition of Gothic horror novel by Anne Radcliffe. She may not be offering any, universal signs or figures or structures which can be taken by others and which can be used by others. So, like this, he goes on to say what. Yeah, I think one page is missing here in this part, because we have to discuss four author functions. Foucault discusses somewhere. The page missed, I think. I will let you know, and we'll continue adding that page also. So we'll continue in tomorrow's class. Hope you will listen to the lectures, keeping the text in front of you. Don't forget to keep the text with you, otherwise it will be like Latin and Greek to you. You can't follow anything. Have a nice time. Bye.